Good afternoon, YouTube. This is man, my way, George Page, coming to you live on YouTube. Well, folks, it's kind of quiet right now in the bodybuilding scene. This is even though it started the new year, women's bodybuilding is not going to really start up till right about I think about early May. No shows coming up. There are some shows coming up, but it's mostly in the other divisions. But I might talk about those later on. But this is something I want to talk about. I'm gonna tell you about this. I'm a sci-fi nerd. I love sci-fi shows. I've been a fan of these shows for so many years. Shows like Star Trek, movies like Star Wars. I mean, you know, I just like the fantasies of it, of just the futuristic prospects of it, and just Doctor Who. I liked him. He's one of my favorite shows growing up. But this is a show I used to watch a long time ago. And if you're a sci-fi show fan, you know the show. This was Farscape. And Farscape was a show that came on around about the early 2000s. It came out in 1999. And it was on the Sci-Fi Channel. When Sci-Fi Channel was the Sci-Fi Channel. Before it got bought out and then switch it up. And now they're showing CSI and James Bond movies on Sci-Fi Channel. That's not sci-fi. God, I don't know what but anyway, now this was the original series that's created, in the end of in the early 2000s. It was around 1999, and it was a story about this guy who goes into space, and there was a group of him and a group of prisoners and also a former military officer. It was kind of original. I would say somebody compare it to another popular movie by the name of Guardians of the Galaxies, but a little different. But yeah, you might see some similarities to it. Some of the characters, like you know, they, it's just but Guardians of the Galaxy been around for a lot longer as a comic book, I believe. I think I think Guardians was out. Which was out before? Is it Guardians or Farscape? That's the debate. That's what I talk about. I think it's just maybe there's been inspiration for Guardians of the Galaxy. But anyway, the story is about John Crichton, who is a astronaut and a commander and a scientist, and he wanted to do some testing on space anomalies. So his ship is called the Farscape, and he goes into space to do some tests. But then the ship gets sucked into a wormhole, which is some kind of spatial anomaly. And it took him to the other side of the galaxy. You know, we gets caught up in the middle of a battle, and during the battle, he gets in an accident with another ship, a Prowler, which is run by a group called the Peacekeepers, which are their race is called Salvation. And because of this, is the death of a peacekeeper pilot who is the brother of a commanding officer by the name of Crace. So Crace is angry that his brother gets killed, and he thinks John did it on purpose, but it was an accident. So John gets pulled onto the ship, and along with with one another peacekeepers by the name of Aaron Stone. So when they finally free Maya, they escape. You know, and Pilot, who is the guy who is a alien that is connected to the ship to Moria, because of they were breed for that purpose. They get bonded to a Leviathan, which was her she was a living ship. She was called Leviathan, and their job is to work the ship, to control it, whatever else. But Maya was under control by used as a transport ship. So Mario, along with John and the other characters, Starburst. It's kind of like almost like warp drive, and they get out of the situation and get away from Grace, who's chased after them. Now, the actors that played on the series as John Crichton was Ben Bauer. He's been around, American actor. He's an American actor, and this show was done in Australia. So and the reason why, because Australian production it was cheaper than doing it in America. They couldn't really do this show if they did it in America. And next up, you had Claudia, um, Black, who played Erin Soon, who was a peacekeeper officer and pilot. Her character was just an interesting character. She was this warrior, this officer who was now part of this group of ex-convicts because of she chose to stand up for Crichton. Then you had Anthony Simcoe, who played um, Dargo. Dargo was an alien who was a warrior. Now he was in prison because of the murder of his wife, who was Sebastian, you know, and they had a child together, and she was murdered by her brother. The thing with Dargo, he was kind of like, uh, he was kind of like a best way to say it, he was kind of like the version of Worf. I think that's why I like the show. He kind of reminded me of Worf. It was a great show. I love Dargo. And then there was Zorn, played by Virginia Hay, and she was like this priestess from her race of priests. They were like very religious nature naturalists, but she was in prison for the murder of her lover. They did some kind of a little joining thing. She's kind of like almost like a Vulcan in a way, but it was because of the melting of the minds. Her lover was murdered, and she was in prison. And then you had Rigel, who was voiced by another actor, and he was a royal dominar. He was like royalty on his planet, but he was sentenced to prison because of by set up by his cousin who wanted control of his position. you know. And this was a very kind of motley crew. And one thing was John was kind of like the sore thumb of the group. I mean, he was, being from a different galaxy, not understanding how things. When he got on the ship, he didn't understand the language. So what he was rejected by one of these things that walks around, that drives around Moria, which were like kind of, maintenance bots. He was rejected with nanites so he can understand languages. In that part of the galaxy, everybody's injected with them because they can unsay each other. Kind of like I think one show I think about the day that was I'm trying to think who I think there was a movie or TV show that did the same thing too. I think I can't remember which one it was, but and then by the end of the first season, things kind of shook up a bit. There was a situation where John was implanted with memories or some kind of, when he went back he was him and the crew. I think he was caught up like he thought he went back to Earth, but what was a fake Earth, and the aliens there implanted him with knowledge about wormhole technology, and they were getting chased by a character by the name of Scorpius. Now, during that season, the end of that season, Moya was pregnant. It was an accident that happened with Dargo, who was trying to, look for some problem. He kicked some kind of thing. It was an experiment that was being done by the peacekeepers. And, she became pregnant. She had a son named Talon. And then they pick up another character named Chiana. And Chiana was this young grifter, thief, She had a love interest with Dargo. Then you had Scorpius. And something about Scorpius was he was a half breed alien. He was half of one race, which was called Scaran, and he was half Sebastian. And the Scarians were more like they were very, hot, warm-blooded creatures. But being that he was half Sebastian, and the thing about the Sebastians was they didn't have a gland where they couldn't control heat. They couldn't take extreme heat. So Scorpius had to get a special suit. So that season, Aaron got hurt and injured, and John just got himself a peacekeeper to go on a planet to try to get some help for Aaron. And then Scorpius saw through his disguise, and then he was captured. And then Scorpius found out that he had this technology about wormholes, and Scorpius also took over Crace's position. He kicked him out. So Crace decided to join up with John after they escaped. And then, because, Talon needed a guide, Chris became kind of like his version of pilot. So he could control the Talon. And Talon was like really young. He was, like I said, he was just a living weapon. And then he still had, like, Chris had put some kind of thing in John's head so he can, like, kind of control him. He's chasing after John, trying to get that technology. And then they went to his planet to get away from him, which was like kind of another group of Sebastians. On there was a princess who was poisoned by her brother. She couldn't mate, but John was given some kind of a little kind of chemical. He tasted it was sweet, and she found out that John was the perfect person to be the father of her child. So her and John, they didn't do it like they did kind of like a fertilization, and then John was frozen so for it to be, the unthaw and 1,000 in the future with their child. But because of what was happening, the brother of the princess, who had made a deal with the Scarabs, you know, and John was let free because the Scarabs were going to destroy him. They're going to destroy John. John was defrosted, and then they found out the plot about the Scarabs trying to take over that planet. You know, but they went on, and there was an episode where John met up with a guy named Stark. Stark was kind of like this wizard. He was kind of an empath where he took people's feelings of hurt and pain. And him and John met when they were prisoners together. It's a story, Stark. And then also Stark told Dargo about his son. Dargo had a son with his wife. His name was Joffrey. You know, and his son was going to be sold in slavery. So they got a plan to try to save him. They did like kind of a big bank heist. And then they picked another character which John had issues because of the chip in his head. He had to go to a planet. And they also that in that same episode, Aaron was dying. She was affected with something. She was about to die. So they picked up this alien girl who worked for the scientists, and she was herself. Her name was Joel. You know, and then because of the fact that that Zahn was trying to saved Aaron's life by melding with her, you know, she was dying. And then in that, I think it was about the end of the third season, where Zahn sacrificed her life to save all the others. So Virginia had left the series. So the big question is why she left the show. From what I was studying, Virginia was sick of getting sick from all of the prosthetics and all the stuff she had to do for this character. So she decided she wanted out of the show. And I liked Zahn. Zahn was great. I mean, I feel like the show kind of changed after she left, and it did. They picked up another character called Norati, and they called her Granny. She was a sidekick, a mystic. She had a third eye. She was the she kind of replaced Zahn in a way. You know, she was just kind of this out there kind of old lady, but also she's the one who told Aaron that she was pregnant. So the cast changed. Now you got the new Jewel. You have China. Also you got Chris. Who's controlling talent, and you have Scorpius chasing after him. And then you had the relationship with John and Aaron, really growing. They really love each other, and she don't tell John that she's pregnant just yet. She don't really know herself. Then they pick this character by the name of, I think her name was me. I'm gonna try to remember her name. Let me see. It was her name was Sisu, Sikso. I mean, I don't know the name, but she was just really a smart girl. She had understanding about wormhole technology. John met her on an episode where he was like, he got off of Lefi of Moria. He went on his own. He was stranded for about a year, about a few months, and he met her. And, she was she was kind of very overbearing character. I didn't like her too much. And then Chris got dethroned by another person. Like what he did to sorry, Scorpius. What Scorpius did to Chris, this other character did to him. She was a different alien. She was like a also a half breed, just like Chris, but she was a little bit more close to that of Sebastian. She was like from another race where it was two billions of two races. One was like Sebastian, one was also one was like Sebastian. So closer to what I was studying, the race that she was mixed was closer to that of humans. And she took over and kicked Scorpius out. So Scorpius was now traveling with John and the crew. And the series went pretty good. I liked this series. A lot of different characters. Then at the end of the season, there was this. I thought it was going to be just the season ended in 2003. I thought it was going to be like they had a series finale. It was an episode where John and after everything we went through, and then John got to go back to Earth for a time, spend time with his family. He had to leave Earth because he feared that the Sebastians, the peacekeepers, would come to Earth and take it over. So he left Earth, went back out with the crew, went back to Farscape space. But the ship was called Farscape, but we didn't know the galaxy that it was in, so we called it Farspace Farspace galaxy. So he went back, and then him and Aaron, after everything we went through, all the stuff between being chased by Scorpius with the Scarens and everything else, and John finally getting that information about the kind of control of the information about wormholes in his head. They were on a boat in on a planet. It was a lot of water, and they were sitting talking, and she was telling that she was pregnant, and it was a good feeling. Then this ship comes with this funny looking aliens, face like with all the pieces, and they shoot them to pixels. I say, what the fuck? I mean, that was just come on, man. And then I found out the series it was done. I said, what? You can't leave it like that. But what they did was in the next year, in 2004, they created a Farscape mini movie series, a mini series, which is like back in the day they used to have mini series were lasted like for you know about a week, I mean 5 days at the most. It's just like maybe 4 or 5. I mean, sometimes it was like 10 episodes, in for which kind of condensed the a series or a movie or something like that. And this was like I think it was 2 or 3 day miniseries, and it was a story of you know they were what happened was that the it was a war between Sebastians and um the peacekeepers and the Scarans, and mostly ones they was chasing after John for his information about wormholes he uses the weapon. And then one part was that Rigel, who is he's an amphibious creature, can swim in the water. He was gathering all the pieces of John and Aaron. One part was that Roger accidentally, swallowed a piece of Aaron that contained her baby, and Roger had to be pregnant for a good part of the movie. And then when the baby started to develop, Roger had to, they had to take the out of the baby, put it back into Aaron, because they said that I think the Sebastians had a shorter cycle compared to humans. And then they had the baby. Aaron and John had a son, and they went through the fighting this between fighting the peacekeepers and the Scarans. But then finally, John did something. I think he did where he just used technology to end the war between the peacekeepers and the Scarans. And in the series end. The movie it was in the movie in the series. It was like it was a wrap up for our fans, but I think it was kind of disappointing. One part was there was a part with Dargo. He disappeared. We don't know if Dargo was dead or not. It was just it was a lot of stuff that I feel like still left up in the air. I think they even made a few comics. I got a book. It's a book of Farscape book, but I think they also made some comics. But I really like the relationship between Claudia Black and Ben Brewer. I mean, it was a great relationship. They had this close bond about them. I remember there was an episode where they both were trapped on a planet, and they grew old together. And because I think with her, being that Sebastians were totally different from humans. She didn't age. She aged, but I think it was I think she's much older, younger, like that. I think John was like a man of his 80s physically, and even though she looked 80 or maybe older, she was more active. You know, but it was a great show. But later on, Brower leaves the show, and the show ends after that, and they bounced around for a bit, not much doing, but it picked up onto the series Stargate SG-1, you know, and it's usually it's around about a little bit after the end of the series, and John plays the role of Lieutenant Colonel Cameron Mitchell, and Mitchell's replacement to Richard Dean Anderson's character Jack O'Neill. Jack was part of Stargate. Then he was the running Stargate, and he got promoted. And Jeff Bridges took his place. After took place of the other guy. And then Claudia, she came on the series later on. I think she came out later on, and she played kind of like a grifter. She was kind of like the version of Rigel, the female version of Rigel. She also was in a relationship with the character Daniel Jackson. You know, it was it was all right. I think that was last year's of Stargate. I didn't watch it. I used to watch Stargate as much because used to be Stargate moved from Showtime to Sci-Fi Channel. Stargate used to be on I think right after Farscape, and they switched up and times like that. And one thing about Claudia Black, I think she was an amazing woman. I think she was beautiful. She had just something about her. She just attractive. She's being an Australian actress. One time I was on this message board for I think it was a sci-fi message board, something like that, and I mentioned Claudia Black would make a great Wonder Woman. And somebody said, "Nah, man, she's too flat. She's too skinny." But look at Gal Gadot. Look at the Wonder Woman they got now. Come on. I think Claudia Black would have made a great Wonder Woman, especially early her career like that, doing Farscape. They could have took a chance. I mean, she would have been, come on. They were already about, by the time she came on the scene, they were already about went through 3 or 4 Supermans and Batmans, and I think she would have made a great Wonder Woman. Cause like, one thing was she's Australian. I think actually would probably be nice. With Gal Gadot, she's Israeli. I don't know. I think that kind of Australians that have access to a different base. Australia was once a British Commonwealth. That's what it's in the principles too. But one thing about the show was the characters they have, also the different creatures. The show was produced by the Jim Henson Company. And Brian Henson, the son of Jim Henson, he was one of the producers. You know, and I said the show was done by also a company by Australia 9. It was a company out of Australia because the production rate was cheaper. Shows like huge like Hercules and Xena and a couple of those shows were done in Australia because it was cheaper to do it there than in the States. You gotta remember, it costs a lot to do anything in America. But all the different characters have and aliens. Some were puppets, some were people in prosthetics. I mean, that's a lot of work there. I mean, come on, a lot of hard work, to do that stuff. But the show was a great show, even though it's been gone off television for almost, I think, since the last movie, 17 years. And then some of the actors still do the Comic Cons to come together. I don't like Claudia Black as a blonde. I think she's better as a brunette. Yeah. And Jim Brower, but he's still around. He does some TV shows, mostly stuff in the Americas. He's done like Criminal Minds. He's done CSI, SWAT. Claudia does some stuff over in Australia. You know, some of the most of the other actors were Australian actors, so they mostly act in Australia. But I love the show. It was a great show. It was totally different from anything on Sci-Fi. It was action. It was comedy. There was even some episodes of horror, some little, kind of dramatic stuff. It was just a great show. I mean, it was totally different out the gate. It was just, different from like TV shows like, Star Trek, different from like movies like Star Wars. Farscape was just a great show, especially as a young kid. I wasn't too young then. I think I was just in my mid 20s when the show was, in my mid 20s. Like, no, I was in my early 30s when the show started. And, it was just a great show, especially for a fan of sci-fi. Like I said, I am a sci-fi nerd. I'm saying one thing. I'm not a fan of X Files. Now, one of my sisters who knows me said, when I said that, she said, "George, you're not a fan of X Files?" I said, "Nah, I never really got to that show. I don't know why. I know I used to watch some shows. It was on Fox, and Fox had a good number of great sci-fi shows, but I never really got into X Files. I never did. Call me weird. I am. But like I said, Farscape was a great show. I loved it. Right now, I just this a few days ago. If you notice, this is what we call an antenna channel called Comet. It's kind of like the sci-fi channel for antenna television, and they picked up Farscape, and I'm watching it. I'm watching it again. I mean, I'm just it revitalized that young me back in the day who was a big fan of sci-fi. Back when Sci-Fi Channel was Sci-Fi Channel, not SOA or what it is now. I mean, it shows wrestling. But like I said, Farscape was a great show. I'm a fan of it. If you're a fan of Farscape, post in a comment. Who was your favorite character? What was your favorite episode? What you liked about the show? Share your comments with me. Who are fans of sci-fi, especially a show like Farscape. I still believe that Farscape gave the idea for Guardians of the Galaxy. Maybe I'm wrong. It's me all the way, George Page. Don't like, subscribe. I'm out.